You said, don't bother you. I'm just listening.
I've been married to Jessica Porter for 2 years, 4 months, and some extra days I stopped counting once everything began to change. In the beginning, it felt like I'd discovered something rare, like I'd escaped the grim statistics of failing marriages and landed in some golden zone of lasting love. For the first 6 months, I was certain I had it all figured out. While my friends at the gym traded complaints about nagging wives, forgotten errands, and passive-aggressive silences, I quietly reveled in my good fortune. Jessica wasn't like that. She was warm, playful, affectionate, texting me before my alarm even rang, reminding me in emojis and sweet words that I was loved. Every morning felt like a continuation of the honeymoon. Even the mundane routines had a kind of sparkle to them. She'd send selfies from the next room just to say she missed me, even when I could literally hear her breathing on the other side of the wall. She left notes in my lunch, drew hearts on napkins, wore my hoodies just because they smelled like me. We danced in the kitchen at midnight while cooking quesadillas, argued playfully about whether Die Hard counted as a Christmas movie, and went on random road trips with no plan, just old songs and dumb jokes and wind in our hair. It was effortless, it was intoxicating, and it wasn't just in my head. My mom adored her. My best friend, twice divorced by his mid-30s, said I must have hacked the system. I believed them. I even flirted with the idea of starting a blog about how to keep your wife crazy about you. Looking back, I'm grateful I didn't. It would have aged poorly. At first, I thought the change was nothing. Just life catching up. The messages came later in the day, shorter and less expressive. The selfies stopped. She stopped wearing my clothes. The affection didn't vanish overnight. It just slowly thinned out like a song fading mid-chorus. I noticed, of course, but I told myself it was stress, maybe work-related burnout. Her firm had her working longer hours, chasing impossible deadlines. That had to be it. Then it became harder to ignore. The warmth between us gave way to something cold and distant. It was like she'd switched modes from wife to manager, and I was being performance reviewed in my own home. Every conversation felt formal, even strategic. She started treating intimacy like a scheduled task, sending messages that read like emails from HR. Her tone grew sterile, her presence distant. I half expected her to ask for meetings on Outlook. I brought it up, carefully, tried to approach it with concern, not confrontation. But each time, I was met with the same curt answers. She was tired. I was imagining things. Now wasn't the time. Her expression said more than her words. Exhausted, vaguely irritated, like I was bothering her by caring too much. I kept reaching out, hoping the version of her I knew would come back. But she kept drifting. There was no fight, no big betrayal, just a steady unraveling. I started to feel like I was the only one still holding on while she was already somewhere else, mentally and emotionally. I used to think we were the kind of couple that made others jealous. Now I'm not sure if we ever really were. Maybe I was too caught up in the fantasy to see the cracks beneath the surface, or maybe something changed in her that she never told me about. Either way, it's clear now. I didn't see the walls of the cell I was in until I realized I wasn't free anymore. The night everything officially derailed happened on a Thursday, which feels appropriate because Thursdays are inherently cursed days. Too far from the weekend to feel hopeful. Too close to the end to pretend you're still fresh and motivated. I was parked on our sectional couch, watching this surprisingly fascinating documentary about ducks on National Geographic. Before you judge my viewing choices, let me tell you that ducks are actually incredible creatures with some seriously dark mating behaviors that make human relationships look like wholesome Disney movies. I was approximately 40 minutes deep into learning about mallard territorial disputes when I heard the front door slam with the kind of force that physically rattles picture frames and immediately signals someone's about to make your evening significantly worse. Jessica walked into the living room like a prosecutor entering a courtroom where she already knows the verdict is in her favor. And she released this long, dramatic sigh, not just any regular exhale, but one of those theatrical breaths that sounds like you've personally offended the very air she's forced to share with you. I looked up from my duck documentary, remote still in hand, watching as she stood there in her expensive work clothes. Those designer slacks that cost more than my monthly gym membership, and that silk blouse she'd called an investment piece, when I nearly had a heart attack looking at the credit card statement. "I'm Marcus," she said, and the way she pronounced my name made it sound like a medical diagnosis. "We need to talk, now." Let me tell you something about the phrase, "we need to talk," that every person in a relationship already instinctively knows. Nothing good has ever, in the entire history of human communication, followed those 4 words. It ranks right up there with "it's not you, it's me" in the Hall of Fame of relationship doom phrases. She crossed her arms in that universal posture of confrontation, and I could immediately tell she'd rehearsed this entire speech, probably during her commute home or in the bathroom mirror at work during lunch. "From now on," she announced, and I swear she delivered this line like she was unveiling a new company policy. "I'll decide when we spend time together. Stop bothering me." She just stood there waiting for my reaction. And I could tell she expected me to immediately start arguing, or maybe even begging, asking what I'd done wrong and how I could fix it. But here's the thing about being completely blindsided by your wife, declaring what essentially amounts to martial law in your own marriage. Your brain kind of short-circuits for a moment. I blinked at her, still holding the remote, trying to process what I'd just heard. Did she really just tell me to stop bothering her? Were we roommates now? Had I somehow missed the memo about our marriage transitioning into some kind of hands-off arrangement where I needed written permission slips to interact with my own wife? "Cool," I finally said, because what else do you say when someone drops a conversational bomb like that? "So do I need to book an appointment through HR, or is there like a household portal I should be using? Maybe a Google Calendar link where I can see your availability windows?" I was genuinely asking. But I also couldn't resist the sarcasm because the sheer absurdity of the situation practically demanded it. My buddy Derek had told me about his ex-wife who once made him schedule intimate time 2 weeks in advance, and I'd laughed thinking that would never be me. Yet here I was, apparently living that exact nightmare. She rolled her eyes so dramatically I'm surprised they didn't get permanently stuck looking at the back of her skull. "I'm serious, Marcus. You're too clingy." Clingy? That word just hung in the air like a bad smell, and I had to physically resist the urge to laugh out loud because the accusation was so wildly disconnected from reality, it was almost impressive. Me? Clingy? I once waited 3 full hours outside a clothing store while she tried on what must have been every single item in that place, including things that weren't even remotely her size, just because she wanted to see how the cut looked. I sat on that uncomfortable concrete bench by the entrance, watching an endless parade of shopping bags and screaming toddlers pass by. I didn't complain once, not when my back started hurting, not when I got hungry and realized I'd stupidly skipped lunch, not even when she finally emerged after those 3 hours with only one item that she'd return the following week because the color looked different in natural light. That's not clingy behavior. That's Olympic-level devotion. That's the kind of patience that should earn you some kind of medal or at least a commemorative plaque that says, "World's most tolerant husband." I'd even posted about it in the husband's group chat, and my buddy Alex had responded with F like I died in battle, which honestly wasn't far from how it felt. But sure, Jessica, I'm the clingy one for occasionally wanting to spend time with my wife or expecting a text response within a reasonable time frame. Clearly, I was the problem in this equation. But here's where I made the decision that would fundamentally change everything that followed. Instead of fighting back or defending myself or launching into a detailed PowerPoint presentation about all the ways I'd been the literal opposite of clingy, I just smiled. It wasn't even a fake smile manufactured for show. It was genuine because something inside me just kind of clicked, like a switch flipping in my brain that suddenly said, "You know what? Let's see exactly how this plays out." It was the kind of smile you give when you suddenly realize you're holding all the cards in a poker game, but your opponent has no idea yet. "Sure thing, boss," I said, giving her a little mock salute for good measure. "Consider me officially unbothered and entirely too busy to bother you. I'll be over here in my designated zone, living my best unclingy life." The sarcasm was thick enough to spread on toast, but she either didn't catch it or didn't care. She just stood there for another few seconds, maybe expecting me to crumble or chase after her when she inevitably stormed off dramatically. But I simply unmuted my duck documentary and went back to learning about aquatic bird behavior as if nothing significant had just occurred. She stormed off, and yes, it was a proper storm off, complete with heavy footsteps that made the floorboards creak and the dramatic slamming of our bedroom door that caused the living room walls to physically shudder. I could practically feel her satisfaction radiating through the house like heat waves, convinced she'd just won some major victory and established clear dominance in our relationship hierarchy. She probably thought she'd successfully put me in my place, drawn a firm boundary that would make me realize how desperately I needed her attention, sending me crawling back with apologies and promises to be less needy. What she didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly have predicted in that moment of self-righteous triumph, was that she just handed me something I didn't even know I wanted desperately. Permission. Permission to stop trying so hard. Permission to stop walking on eggshells, constantly worried about saying the wrong thing or having the wrong tone. Permission to stop being the only person in our marriage who seemed to genuinely care about making it actually work. She just signed what I mentally started calling the silence contract. A legally non-binding but emotionally liberating agreement that I would take her at her exact word and stop bothering her completely, fully, without exception. So I did exactly what she asked, and let me be completely honest. It was significantly harder than I thought it would be. Not because I was desperately missing her or anything like that, but because breaking deeply ingrained habits is legitimately difficult when you've spent 2 solid years conditioning yourself to operate in a certain way, building patterns that become almost automatic. Day 1 of the silence contract was genuinely rough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I woke up that Friday morning and my thumb literally hovered over her name in my contacts list. Pure muscle memory trying to send the usual good morning text that I'd been sending religiously for the past 2 years like some kind of automated messaging robot. I caught myself approximately 3 times before noon, each time stopping mid-motion and reminding myself, nope. She explicitly said stop bothering her, and I'm a man of my word. Day 2 was when the withdrawal symptoms really kicked in with full force. I'm talking about that weird, uncomfortable anxiety you experience when you're used to constant communication, and suddenly there's just absolute nothing, like someone cut a vital cord. My phone felt lighter somehow, less important, like it had lost its primary function in my daily life. I'd pick it up expecting notifications that weren't there, experiencing phantom buzzes that turned out to be just my imagination playing cruel tricks. Around 3 in the afternoon, I actually typed out a full message. Hey, how's your day going? And had my finger literally touching the send button before my brain screamed at me like an angry drill sergeant. Stand down, soldier. Remember the mission. I deleted that message so fast you'd think it was incriminating evidence in a criminal trial. But by day 3, something genuinely started shifting in my consciousness, like clouds parting after a storm. You didn't even fully realize was happening. I woke up, went through my entire morning routine, shower, coffee, pretending to care about the morning news, and realized with sudden clarity that I hadn't thought about texting Jessica even once. It just didn't occur to me naturally, and that's when it really hit me like a revelation. Wait a second here. She explicitly told me not to bother her. This isn't me being petty or playing manipulative games. This is me literally following her clearly stated, unambiguous instructions. I'm just being an obedient husband. Really. If anything, I deserve a gold star for my excellent listening skills and demonstrated ability to respect explicitly stated boundaries. The more I thought about it from this angle, the more liberated I genuinely felt. Like I'd just discovered some kind of loophole in the universe that had been sitting there all along, waiting for someone to notice it. Day 4 was when I actually started thriving, and I use that word very intentionally because thriving is exactly what it felt like. Not just surviving or getting by, but actually flourishing. You know how people talk about finding themselves after a breakup? Well, I was finding myself during a marriage, which is either really depressing or really enlightening depending on how you choose to look at it. I discovered what genuine peace actually sounds like when there's nobody around to constantly remind you to fix your tone, or sighing dramatically because you chewed your cereal too loud, or existing in a way that somehow manages to offend them just by breathing. It's quiet. Genuinely, beautifully quiet. I could hear my own thoughts clearly for the first time in months, and turns out they were actually pretty decent company. That Saturday, I did something I genuinely hadn't done in over a year. I rejoined the gym. Not the fancy boutique place where Jessica used to drag me for couples yoga classes that made me feel like my body was actively betraying me in real time, but the old-school iron-pumping gym downtown where guys grunt unapologetically, and absolutely nobody cares if you're wearing matching workout gear or ratty old t-shirts with holes. The moment I walked through those doors, I felt like I'd come home to a place I didn't even realize I'd been missing. The smell of rubber mats and protein shakes, the sound of weights clanking together, those motivational posters that were so cheesy they somehow circled back around to being genuinely inspiring. It was absolutely perfect. That's where I met Tyler, or rather re-met him, because we'd actually gone to the same high school about a decade ago, but had been in completely different social circles back then. Tyler looked like someone had used Photoshop on a human being to achieve maximum muscle definition. The dude was built like an actual Greek statue that had been specifically designed to make regular guys feel inadequate about their fitness levels. He spotted me struggling with a bench press that was probably way too ambitious for someone who'd spent the last year getting their primary exercise by walking from the couch to the refrigerator. And he came over with this genuine, friendly smile that immediately made me like him. "Hey man, you need a spotter?" he asked. And I gratefully accepted because the alternative was getting literally crushed by a barbell and having death by overconfidence at the gym written on my tombstone. We got to talking between sets, and I found myself actually opening up about the whole Jessica situation, not in a pathetic crying into my protein shake way, but more like sharing a bizarre story that was happening to someone else entirely, with enough distance to see the absurdity. Tyler listened carefully, nodded knowingly like he'd heard similar stories before, and then said something that absolutely ended me. "Bro, she put you on do not disturb mode. That's cold." We both cracked up laughing, and just like that, I had a gym buddy who understood the complete absurdity of my situation without making me feel like a victim or someone to be pitied. The other unexpected blessing of the silence contract came at work. You know Rachel, my coworker in accounting? She works in the accounting department and has the emotional range of a golden retriever. Everything is either amazing or the best thing ever or so exciting, in a way that probably should be annoying but somehow manages not to be. We'd always been friendly in that casual workplace way, grabbing coffee occasionally or chatting by the microwave in the break room while waiting for our lunches to heat up. But we'd never really hung out beyond those brief surface-level interactions. But during that first week of my newfound freedom from marital drama, she noticed something different about me during our Monday morning coffee run to the shop across the street. "Marcus, you seem lighter," she said, tilting her head like she was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't quite make sense. "Did you get a haircut or something? There's definitely something different about you." I laughed and told her no, just making some significant life adjustments that were working out better than expected. And before I knew it, we were having actual lunch together in the office cafeteria, talking about everything from her absolutely disastrous attempts at pottery classes — apparently she'd managed to ruin 4 bowls in one session — to my newfound obsession with duck documentaries and their surprisingly dark mating rituals. Rachel had this incredible way of making even the most mundane conversations feel genuinely interesting and engaging, like she was truly fascinated by whatever you were saying, regardless of how boring the topic might actually be. And I realized with sudden clarity how much I genuinely missed having actual friends outside of my marriage who didn't make me feel guilty for simply existing. By the end of that first week of freedom, I'd established a whole new routine that didn't involve anxiously waiting for texts that would never come or wondering if my wife would deign to spend time with me based on her mood and schedule. I was hitting the gym 3 solid times a week with Tyler, having lunch with Rachel every Wednesday like clockwork, and spending my evenings doing whatever the heck I actually wanted. Whether that was watching documentaries about aquatic birds, reading books I'd been meaning to get to for months, or just sitting in blessed silence without anyone making me feel guilty for taking up space. I even started journaling, which I never thought I'd be the type of person to do, but my therapist friend had recommended it years ago during a conversation about stress management. My entry for day 8 read, "Still alive. Haven't been nagged about laundry placement in 7 full days. Spirits genuinely high. Tyler says my bench press form is definitely improving with each session. Rachel brought me cookies she baked that were slightly burnt around the edges, but I ate them anyway because that's what actual friends do for each other. Is this what peace feels like?" Turns out it absolutely was peace, and apparently it looked really good on me based on all the comments about my improved mood. A full week passed, then another few days, then suddenly it was 2 complete weeks, and I realized something genuinely shocking that I hadn't anticipated. I hadn't received a single call, text, emoji, or even one of those passive-aggressive read receipts that let you know someone saw your message but deliberately chose violence instead of responding. My phone's notification center looked like an actual ghost town, with tumbleweeds practically rolling across the screen in the absence of any communication. It was the kind of complete silence that would have sent the old Marcus into a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt, questioning everything about himself. But the new Marcus, the liberated, gym-going, duck documentary-watching Marcus who'd rediscovered what happiness felt like, he was living his absolute best life and genuinely couldn't care less about the silence. What made the whole situation even more bizarre and noteworthy was Jessica's social media presence, or rather, the complete and total lack of it. Now you have to understand something fundamental about my wife. This woman posts absolutely everything to Instagram without exaggeration. Her Instagram story is usually a minute-by-minute documentary of her entire day. Brunch with her girlfriends where every single plate gets photographed from 6 different angles, with various filters. Fresh manicures that apparently require a full professional quality photo shoot, complete with multiple poses. Random dogs we encounter on the street that aren't even ours, but she treats them like they're her long-lost children. She once posted a 15-slide carousel specifically about a smoothie, a single smoothie, with captions discussing wellness journeys and choosing yourself and approximately 40 hashtags that probably reached people in countries I couldn't locate on a map if you paid me. But lately, complete and total radio silence. Her Instagram hadn't been updated in almost 2 full weeks, which in Jessica's world was the equivalent of falling off the face of the earth, or perhaps being abducted by aliens. No stories, no posts, no carefully curated snapshots of her supposedly enviable life that usually generated dozens of likes and comments from her followers. I noticed this absence because, let's be completely honest, even when you're actively trying not to think about someone, you still check their social media like a detective investigating a cold case. It's human nature, or maybe it's just my nature specifically. Either way, the absence was extremely noticeable, like when your neighbor who always mows their lawn at exactly 7 in the morning suddenly stops, and you can't help but wonder if they're okay. I mentioned this particular oddity to Derek over beers that Thursday night at our usual spot, this dive bar called The Rusty Anchor that serves wings so incredible they should probably be illegal, and beer so cheap you don't ask too many questions about its origin story. Derek is my oldest friend, the kind of guy who's been through enough relationship drama to write an actual manual on what not to do in marriages. We were 3 beers deep, working our way through a mountain of buffalo wings that would definitely require an apologetic gym session with Tyler the next morning, when I brought up the whole situation with Jessica's social media blackout. "So she's gone full digital blackout, huh?" Derek said, wiping hot sauce from his beard with a napkin that had definitely seen better days. "Classic tactical move. She's waiting to see exactly how long it takes before you crack and come crawling back, begging for attention like a puppy who knows he's in trouble." He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was explaining basic physics or why you absolutely shouldn't microwave aluminum foil. Just simple, obvious truth. I actually laughed out loud. "She told me not to crawl at all, man. I'm just respecting boundaries like a good emotionally intelligent husband who listens to his wife's clearly stated needs. If anything, I deserve some kind of award for my excellent communication skills. She wanted space. I'm giving her the entire solar system. I'm out here respecting her wishes so thoroughly it should genuinely be considered an Olympic sport." Derek raised his beer in a salute of respect. "I gotta hand it to you, Porter. Most guys would have absolutely cracked by now, sending those pathetic, 'Are you okay?' texts at 2 in the morning like desperate teenagers. But you're out here actually calling her bluff, and I'm genuinely impressed. Coming from a guy who'd sent his ex-wife a 37 text apology for something he legitimately didn't even do, just to keep the peace, that was extraordinarily high praise. The journaling thing had become a daily ritual by this point, something I actually looked forward to each evening instead of it feeling like homework. My entry for day 14 was particularly enlightening. 2 full weeks of genuine peace. Jessica still hasn't broken the silence even once. Learned today that I actually enjoy cooking when nobody's standing over my shoulder, critiquing my knife skills. Made scrambled eggs this morning that were genuinely delicious. Tyler increased my bench press weight. Rachel showed me photos of her sister's wedding and didn't make me feel guilty for existing. Is this what people actually mean when they talk about finding yourself? Then, on day 10, which arrived on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday, my phone buzzed at work. Jessica's name appeared with a simple message. "Hey." 3 letters, no punctuation, no context whatsoever. Just, "Hey," sitting there on my screen like a tiny bomb waiting to explode. The old Marcus would have immediately responded with something overeager like, "Hey, how are you? Everything okay?" Followed by 3 more texts before she even had a chance to reply. But the new Marcus, the evolved, gym-going, mentally stable Marcus who'd been living in blessed peace, looked at that text, put his phone face down on his desk, and went back to his spreadsheet like absolutely nothing had happened. I ignored it for 6 hours. 6 glorious, petty, absolutely intentional hours where I went about my day completely unbothered. I went to lunch with Rachel, hit the gym for a quick session with Tyler, responded to actual important work emails, even reorganized my desk drawer. Every time my phone buzzed with what I assumed were probably follow-up texts from Jessica, I didn't check. When I finally looked at 6:30 that evening, sitting in my car after work, I saw she'd sent nothing else. Just that one "hey" sitting there, probably causing her to spiral into confusion. I typed out my reply with the energy of someone who couldn't care less. Hey, send. Mirror her exact energy. Give her precisely what she gave me. 15 seconds later, literally exactly 15 seconds because I was watching the clock, my phone absolutely exploded with notifications. Why are you being weird? Buzz. Are you okay? Buzz. This is immature, Marcus. 3 texts in rapid succession, each one dripping with more indignation than the last, like I'd committed some cardinal sin. I actually laughed out loud sitting alone in my car, startling some guy walking past who definitely thought I was losing my mind. The irony was so incredibly thick you could cut it with a knife and serve it at a dinner party. She'd created the rule, established it firmly, then got genuinely mad when I followed it exactly. It's like telling someone explicitly not to buy you a birthday present, then getting visibly offended when they show up empty-handed on your birthday. I didn't respond to those follow-up texts either. Just put my phone away in my pocket and drove home with this weird sense of satisfaction bubbling in my chest. Around day 12 of my self-imposed exile from marital drama, something genuinely miraculous happened. I started feeling legitimately good about my life. Not just okay or getting by, but actually genuinely good, like waking up naturally refreshed without an alarm kind of good. It was honestly wild because I didn't fully realize until that moment how much of my daily energy had been getting steadily drained by the constant emotional maintenance that marriage to Jessica required. Turns out peace is criminally underrated. Nobody talks about peace like it's highly desirable. Everyone's always chasing passion and excitement. But you know what's actually interesting? Sleeping through the entire night without waking up at 3 a.m. with anxiety. I'd been sleeping like it was a paid vacation, deep, uninterrupted, and actually restful for once. I'd started running again, something I hadn't done since college. Nothing crazy, just 30 solid minutes around the neighborhood 3 times a week. Then the calls began. It started innocently enough. One call during my lunch break on day 13. I was sitting at Chipotle with Rachel, engaged in a serious debate about whether guacamole was worth the upcharge. It absolutely is. When my phone lit up with Jessica's name displayed prominently. Rachel raised her eyebrows mid-bite, and I just shook my head and declined the call. Not today, Satan, I muttered, and Rachel nearly choked on her rice, laughing at my response. But that single call was just the opening act. By that evening, my phone was absolutely blowing up. 3 calls in 2 hours, each deliberately ignored with increasing satisfaction. I was at the gym with Tyler when call number 4 came through. Tyler noticed me glance at my phone and grin. "Your wife?" he asked, and when I nodded, he just shook his head knowingly. "Bro, she's spiraling. You're out here living your best life, and she can't handle that she's not the center of your universe anymore." When I finally picked up, and I only picked up because she called while I was driving home and my car's Bluetooth automatically connected before I could stop it, she went absolutely nuclear with rage. "You're punishing me!" she shouted before I could even get a word in. "You're being manipulative! This is emotional misuse, Marcus!" I laughed so hard I nearly had to pull over. This woman who'd explicitly told me to stop bothering her was accusing me of manipulation because I'd respected her boundaries. "Babe," I said, catching my breath, "I'm not punishing you. I'm literally doing exactly what you asked. You set the rules, I'm following them. You're not mad at me. You're mad that I'm doing it better than expected." Silence. Then in a small voice, "I just thought you'd fight for us." "Fight for us? You told me to stop bothering you. Fighting would be bothering you. I can't win here. If I pursue you, I'm clingy. If I give you space, I'm abandoning the relationship. I chose the option that lets me sleep at night." Friday afternoon, 2:15, I was in the world's most boring meeting when my desk phone rang. Kelly from reception sounded nervous. "Marcus, your wife's here in the lobby. She says it's urgent. She seems really upset." My heart stopped. I walked to the lobby with growing dread. There she was, designer coat, perfect makeup, clutching her phone. The moment she saw me, she practically lunged forward. Why aren't you answering my calls? I've been trying to reach you for days. Because you told me not to bother you. Not like that, her voice echoed. Heads popped up from cubicles. You know what I meant? Next time you give explicit instructions, I'll download the user manual explaining all the hidden meanings. This was a disaster. Not here. Outside. Now. The moment we hit the parking lot, she detonated. You're trying to manipulate me. You're playing mind games. I stood there calmly. Jessica, I didn't make you look insane. You drove to my workplace and started yelling. You did that yourself. She switched tactics. Shoulders dropped, tears starting. I just miss you. Don't you miss me? The old me would have folded. But this me had built immunity. I've been right here the entire time. You told me to stop bothering you. I stopped. If you miss me, that's a you problem. So you're throwing away 2 years? Jessica, you didn't pick a fight. You declared you'd decide when we spend time together and told me to stop bothering you. You turned our marriage into a dictatorship. I'm done being your emotional vending machine. You'll regret this. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it quietly without anyone telling me I'm doing it wrong. I pulled out my keys. I'm not doing this anymore. Not the games, not the manipulation, not the drama. I'm out. The office talked about the parking lot incident for a week. I emailed HR to document what happened. Linda responded, We've noted the incident. Don't hesitate to reach out if the situation escalates. Meanwhile, Jessica launched a social media pity parade. Her Instagram exploded with healing from narcissists, when silence becomes misuse, filtered selfies captioned, stronger than yesterday. I scrolled past it all, unbothered. Derek called, Your wife is losing it online. Let her post whatever. I'm living my best life. Tyler. Bro, you didn't just dodge a bullet. You dodged a whole missile. 3 months later, I'm in my apartment with perfectly made coffee. No contact for 3 glorious months. Then she emailed. Subject? We need to talk. It was manipulation disguised as self-awareness. She talked about therapy, growth journeys, all the buzzwords. But what it really said was, the new guy dumped me. I'm lonely. I stared at that email for 30 seconds. Then I closed it without responding. Just closed my laptop and took another sip of my coffee. I'd started woodworking, building a simple oak desk. Every smooth edge I sanded represented letting go of resentment. Every joint I fitted together symbolized rebuilding my life. When I finished, I stood back with genuine pride. I'd built something nobody could criticize. My life got smaller since the separation. Papers filed, divorce inevitable, fewer people, fewer obligations. But smaller doesn't mean worse. Sometimes cutting out the excess leaves you with exactly what you need. I still hit the gym with Tyler 3 times weekly, lunch with Rachel on Wednesdays, wings with Derek on Thursdays. I started pottery classes Tuesday nights. Every morning I wake up where everything's exactly where I left it. I stretch, make my coffee, and whisper, no arguments today. And there aren't any. Turns out silence wasn't punishment, like Jessica tried framing it. Silence was freedom in disguise, the kind that lets you breathe deeply and remember who you were before spending all your energy trying to be enough for someone who decided you weren't. I've got my oak desk, my coffee habits, my gym routine, and my peace. And honestly, that's more than enough.